Maya Williams had always been the new girl. Moving from city to city, school to school, she had learned how to blend in, how to keep her head down, and most importantly, how to avoid trouble. But trouble had a way of finding her, even when she did everything to stay invisible. This time, it was at Lincoln High in Chicago, Illinois. A sprawling campus filled with cliques that had been established long before her arrival. She had barely stepped off the bus when she felt it, the weight of curious eyes assessing her, measuring her up. She sighed, gripping the straps of her backpack as she made her way to the entrance. Another school, another routine. Find her locker, locate her classes, identify the people to avoid. And she already had a good idea who was at the top of that list. Bryce Carter. He was the school's golden boy, star quarterback, effortlessly popular, and completely untouchable. The kind of guy who didn't just demand attention, he commanded it. Wherever he stood, people hovered, laughed a little too hard at his jokes, and fell into line without question. Maya knew his type. She had seen boys like him before, the ones who thrived on power, on intimidation. But she had no intention of getting involved. She just wanted to survive the year unnoticed. Fate had other plans. As she walked past the lockers, someone bumped into her shoulder. Hard. Her books tumbled to the ground, scattering across the hallway. A few students turned to watch, some whispering, some smirking. Well, what do we have here? She didn't need to look up to know who it was. Bryce Carter. His voice was calm, almost amused, but there was an unmistakable edge to it. The kind that sent a message. He was playing with his food. Maya inhaled sharply, then crouched down to pick up her books, keeping her expression neutral. She had played this game before. The best way to deal with bullies was not to engage. But Bryce wasn't used to being ignored. "Hey," he called out. "I asked you a question." Maya didn't answer. She simply stood up and walked past him, brushing him off like he was nothing. Bryce's smirk twitched. Then she felt it, a sharp tug on her backpack. Not enough to hurt, but enough to send a message. Maya stopped. Slowly, she turned around. The hallway had fallen silent. Even those who had previously been uninterested were now watching, sensing something different about this moment. Bryce met her gaze, expecting fear, maybe even embarrassment. Instead, he found something else. "Come. You shouldn't have done that," Maya said quietly. Bryce raised an eyebrow. Then he laughed. "And why's that?" Maya didn't answer. She just held his gaze, unflinching. Bryce tilted his head. "You're kind of weird, you know that?" Maya turned away without another word, walking toward her class. She didn't need to look back to know that Bryce wasn't done with her yet. And he had no idea what kind of mistake he had just made. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Maya kept her head down, eating lunch alone, avoiding eye contact. But she could feel Bryce watching her, waiting. By the time the last bell rang, she was already expecting something to happen. So when she stepped outside and heard his voice behind her, she wasn't surprised. "Hey, new girl." Maya sighed and turned around. Bryce stood there, hands in his pockets, that same infuriating smirk on his face. A few of his friends lingered behind him, waiting to see what would happen. "What do you want?" she asked. Bryce took a step closer. "You got an attitude problem, you know that?" Maya let out a short laugh. Not nervous, not scared. Just amused. And that, more than anything, threw Bryce off. "I think," she said slowly, "that you should walk away." Bryce's grin faltered for a split second before he recovered. "Oh yeah." He took another step forward, towering over her. "And why's that?" Maya leaned in slightly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Because you have no idea who I am." Bryce chuckled, shaking his head. "And who exactly are you?" Maya didn't answer. Instead, she reached into her pocket and pressed a button on her phone. A deep roar filled the air. Heads turned as a sleek black Dodge Charger Hellcat pulled up to the curb. The kind of car that made people take notice. The tinted window rolled down. And there he was. Dwayne, "The Rock," Johnson. Bryce's smirk vanished. His friends went silent. Maya turned back to Bryce, smiling for the first time that day. Still think I'm weird? She asked. Bryce didn't answer. Because for the first time in his life, he was the one feeling small.